again. This is taken from chapter 14 of my book Jubilees Insights. It's got the whole book of Jubilees inside my book, plus a lot of Bible cross-references and comments and links and other stuff. So, this is a relatively short chapter. I called this chapter God Calls Abraham. Verse 1. After these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a dream, saying, Fear not, Abraham. I am thy defender, and thy reward will be exceeding great. Genesis 15:1. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abraham in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abraham, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. Verse 2. He said, Lord, Lord, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go hence childless, and the son of Mazek, the son of thy handmaid, is Damasek Eliezer. He will be my heir, and to me thou hast given me no seed. And he said unto him, This man will not be thy heir, but one will come out of thine own bowels, he will be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said unto him, Look towards heaven, number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he looked towards heaven, and behold the stars. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Genesis 15:6. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Verse 8. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee the land of the Canaanites, to possess it forever. And I will be God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. Comment number 1. At the time just after the great flood, Canaan, son of Ham, was cursed by Noah because of sin that his son Ham had done against him, against Noah. Later in time, all his brothers and relatives told Canaan that he would be doubly cursed if he was to take the land of Canaan for an inheritance, as that land belonged to the descendants of Shem. However, Canaan would not listen to his brethren and took over the land of what became called the land of Canaan. Anyway, no, I'm saying Canaan, no. It's not Canaan, it's Canaan. Canaan was a guy forth from Adam, who lived before the flood. This is called Canaan. It's spelt very similar, but this one's Canaan, the land of Canaan. Now, some hundreds of years later, the curse on Canaan is to be fulfilled as both Abraham and his grandson Jacob, as well as Jacob's sons, followed by Moses and the Ishmaelites, when they came out of Egypt some 500 years after Abraham, all slaughtered the Canaanites. And thus the double curse on Canaan was indeed fulfilled. Verse 9. And he said, Lord, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. Comment number 2. Abraham, as he became known eventually, started off with the name Abraham. God changed it to Abraham. Abraham wanted to know how he could really be sure that God would indeed fulfill his promises to him and cause great nations to come forth from him, and that he would be father of a very special nation, Israel. So God told him to make a specific sacrifice to acknowledge that God would indeed keep his word to Abraham. Here we see God himself specifying the exact sacrifice that he wanted Abraham to make. This sacrificial ceremony was later passed on to the children of Israel. Verses 10 and 11. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is near Hebron. And he built there an altar, and sacrificed all these, and he poured their blood upon the altar, and divided them in the midst, and laid them over against each other. But the birds divided he not. Comment 4. Noah, the 10th ancestor in succession before Abraham, offered a similar sacrifice unto God after God had delivered him from the great worldwide flood some 350 years earlier. Genesis 8:20. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Comment 5. Why did God specify, take me a heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, this is unto Abraham of course, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove and a pigeon? Is it just possible that God told Abraham to take animals of 3 years old for the sacrifice, because this sacrifice was a reminder of the sacrifice which Noah had made for all of mankind right after the great flood? Both the sacrifice of Noah and Abraham are similar. The following verses describing Noah's sacrifice unto God right after the great flood. From this very book, Jubilees chapter 6, 1-3. And on the new moon of the 3rd month, he went forth from the ark, and built an altar on that mountain. And he made atonement for the earth, and took a kid, and made atonement by its blood for all the guilt of the earth. For everything that had been on it had been destroyed, save those that were in the ark with Noah. And he placed the fat thereof on the altar, and he took an ox and a goat and a sheep and kids. Comment 6. Could it just be possible that God asked Abraham to sacrifice animals which were 3 years old to symbolize the fact that Noah came out of the ark on the 3rd month and made his sacrifice to God on behalf of all of those slain at the time of the great flood? Comment 7. These early sacrifices by both Noah and Abraham were precursors that the Messiah would one day come, shed his blood, and be sacrificed and die for all sinners. Hebrews 10:1. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offered year by year, continually make the comers thereof perfect. Hebrews 9:28. And so Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation. John 3:36. He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abides on him. Comment 8. For more about Jesus as a sacrificial Lamb of God, and then there's a link there. Verses 12 and 13. And birds came down upon the pieces, and Abraham drove them away, did not suffer the birds to touch them. Then it came to pass, when the sun had set, that an ecstasy fell upon Abraham. And lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And it was said unto Abraham, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall bring them into bondage, afflict them 400 years. Comment 9. Here we see the beginnings of animal sacrifices unto God by Abraham. God is prophesying through his angel to Abraham that his descendants will be 400 years in bondage in Egypt, and history bears out that is exactly what happened during the time of his grandson Jacob and his great-grandchildren, who first went down to Egypt, and their descendants came out of the bondage of Egypt some 400 years later. See Appendix 14 about the explanation of these 400 years. Comment 10. What does this verse mean? An ecstasy fell upon Abraham, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. God is revealing the extreme joy and ecstasy that exists in being very close to God himself, and the opposite, the terrible horror of darkness that has descended upon earth because of Satan and man's disobedience, and what it feels to be like to be far away from God. Verse 14, and the nation also to whom they will be in bondage will I judge, and after that they shall come forth thence with much substance. Comment 11. This above verse, as the nation also to whom they will be in bondage will I judge, is an amazing prophecy given to Abraham by God himself some 400 to 500 years before it was marvelously fulfilled. It is indeed amazingly fulfilled in the Exodus and the 10 plagues of Egypt, where finally Pharaoh lets Israel as a nation depart from Egypt, whilst Egypt itself was totally destroyed by the 10 plagues. See Exodus chapters 5 to 14. Exodus 14:26. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, and upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand up over the sea, and the sea returned his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. Verse 15. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, and buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. What does that mean? Well, the Amorites is part of the Canaanite races, right? And God is just stating, well, I'm not ready yet to get rid of the Canaanites, because the Amorites was one of those nations. It's not quite as bad as it's going to be. So we'll give them a bit more time yet before we wipe them out. Verse 17. And he awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set, and there was a flame, and behold, a furnace of smoking, and a flame of fire passed between the pieces, the sacrifice there on the altar. And that day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to thy seed will I give this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, in commas, giants, the Pacharites, the Hivites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. In other words, all their lands are going to become part of Israel in the future. And the day passed, and Abraham offered the pieces and the birds and their fruit offerings and their drink offerings, and the fire devoured them. And on that day we made a covenant with Abraham. Who's talking? The angels of God, the angels of the presence of God. And on that day we made a covenant with Abraham, according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month. And Abraham renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever. Comment 12. In this verse it clearly makes the connection between Abraham and Noah's covenants which God made with them. It also states that God did these covenants in the exact same months. The 3rd month of the year is the covenant of peace between God and man. Comment 21. And Abraham rejoiced and made all these things known to Sarai, his wife, or eventually God called Sarah. And he believed that he would have seed, but she did not bear. And Sarai advised her husband, Abraham, and said unto him, go unto Hagar, my Egyptian maid. It may be that I shall build up seed unto thee by her. And Abraham hearkened unto the voice of Sarai his wife, and said unto her, do so. And Sarai took Hagar his maid, the Egyptian, gave her to Abraham, her husband, to be his wife. Finally, verse 24. And he went in unto her, and she conceived, and bare him a son, and he called his name Ishmael, in the 5th year of this week, 1965 AM. And this was the 86th year in the life of Abraham. End of chapter. Well, I hope you like that. Do get my book, Jubilees Insights, and all my other Insights books, Joshua Insights, and Eden Insights, and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs Insights, which just come out, and Enoch Insights, and Esdras Insights, and Out the Bottomless Pit, which connects all of them in supernatural and paranormal ways. Plus, it has a lot of scripture in it too. So thanks for listening again, and I just want to get people interested in the Apocryphal books. That's why I'm making these audios. Get them to be interested, to know how interesting the Apocryphal books are. And they don't replace the Bible. No, they enhance the Bible. They add to the stories. Make it even more interesting than it already was. Okay, bye for now. Take care.